Welcome. Is anyone there? Alright. Alright. Come on. Welcome to the Blood Knight Reacts Live. We are live. We are streaming. Don't have any drinks, although I could get some drinks. And yeah, reacting to a little bit of Tim Pool here. Will this help? Alright. It's a little bit better. Oh yeah, I am reacting to Israel v. Iran today. There we go. Watching some Tim Pool here. Chill world today in Minecraft. So yeah. We are currently reacting. And what is... what the title is... Alright. Alright. Today I'm reacting to some Tim Pool. Doing it live. And yeah. Let's get into it, folks.
Hello everybody, my name is Phil Labonte. I'm the lead singer of the heavy metal band All That Remains. I'm an anti-communist and counter-revolutionary. Let's get into it.
Here's the story from Axios. Iran strikes back at Israel. U.S. helps to intercept missiles. Axios reporting Iran launched a major counterattack against Israel on Friday, firing around 100 missiles in 2 barrages. The retaliatory attack began 18 hours after Israel launched a war against Iran, attacking its nuclear facilities and missile sites and killing top military leaders and nuclear scientists.
God damn.
The U.S. is helping to intercept incoming ballistic missiles, according to an Israeli official and a senior U.S. official. So, ladies and gentlemen, the U.S. is now in the war.
Well, shit. And you know what that means, folks? That means NATO is in the war. That means Canada is gonna be in the war. And you know what that means, folks? It's the third installment in the World War franchise. Yep. Oh, yeah. Third installment in the World War franchise, folks. What should I do in Minecraft? So, yeah. World War III, folks. It's gonna be in the West versus Russia, China, and Iran. It's crazy, folks. It's like... I don't know. Well, all I know is the only thing that I know for real. There will be blood shed. Folks, there's gonna be bloodshed. And yeah. Gonna be interesting how things play out. Oh wait, I got pumpkins. Oh yeah. At some point I'm gonna build myself a pumpkin farm in Minecraft. Alright.
Now, call it whatever you want. Some might say, I know that the more pro-Israel side is going to say, we are not at war with Iran, we're simply defending an ally. And I know that the anti-Israel
Oh yeah,
side
we're
is going to say,
we're at war with Iran.
But I think it is fair to say, settle that aside, what is Iran thinking about this? They are threatening retaliation because the U.S. defending Israel and supplying them with weapons while Israel is bombing them. As far as they're concerned, we are at war with Iran. We are actively involved in Israel with weapons,
Oh, yeah.
and we are helping intercept the missile strikes against them. That's how Iran's going to see it. The question is, does this result in Iranian attacks on U.S. assets in the region? Considering what Trump has been saying about we knew, and the Iran saying that
it's
the
gonna
US
be a
was
shit
deceiving them,
show.
I think it's very likely. Now, a couple of quick updates. This is massive. From Fox News, the Kiryat compound, Israel's equivalent to the Pentagon, has been hit. We have this report from Fox News. Let me see if I can play it.
Respondent Trey Yingst has been up all night, is standing by with all the details. Trey, what can you tell us?
Yeah, Laura, following that Israeli attack against Iranian nuclear facility, top IRGC leadership overnight and into today. The Iranians have responded with 3 waves of ballistic missiles. This is Israel's version of the Pentagon, the Kiryat. And building on this compound was just hit.
Go back, please.
You can understand here, it's very tense at this specific location because the Iranians are now targeting the defense establishment of Israel.
Wow.
Yep.
So here we go. We also have this from Fox News. Trey Yingst. An Iranian ballistic missile struck a residential building in the suburbs of Tel Aviv. At least 1 woman has been killed and 20 others injured. So, so far, all I've seen is 1 death in Israel. I'm not entirely sure. There is a video, actually, which I'll see.
1 death so far.
Strike. It's close up. So, I don't know. What do you guys think? There's a lot to break down on this.
Well, I mean, good.
Well, I think that Netanyahu made a proclamation as to why they launched this attack.
was likening this to the Nazi military buildup, and the appeasement that happened before World War II. The French and the British, basically Neville Chamberlain, the British Prime Minister, wanted to appease.
Oh yeah, because Iran is somehow Nazi Germany, folks.
Poland, he wanted part of Czechoslovakia, so the British gave him Czechoslovakia. They gave him the western part of the
That's
state.
an entirely
Because of
justifiable
that, the
reason
Germans
to
kept
go to
building
war
up
with
and building up
Iran.
and building up their military until it was too late.
So this is a video of an Iranian ballistic missile striking downtown Tel Aviv.
And the idea is the hypersonic, maybe, like the bypassing the Iron Dome's capabilities,
Oh, yeah.
weaponry. But I think the argument that Netanyahu's making is that he's preempting a military buildup. That if Iran gets a nuclear weapon, they will use it. They
Probably
will
not going to
obliterate
stop
Tel
Iran
Aviv.
from
You
getting
think
a
that was
nuke.
big. Imagine whatever modern day military warhead. And so it's like if we don't stop
Probably
them,
just
but I mean,
delayed
that's
them.
a declaration of total war, if that's the
Do
case.
you find that argument compelling that they would actually use a nuclear weapon on Israel? Because honestly, legitimately, I don't think they would. I think the reason that they want a nuclear weapon is because
no, they
North
would.
Korea has a nuclear weapon, and the U.S. isn't breathing down their throat talking about regime change.
They
Libya
do
gave up
not
their
like
nuclear
Israel.
weapon, and then a couple of years later, NATO was running air cover for the rebels. So I don't think that Iran actually wants it specifically so they can use it to essentially set in motion the destruction of the Iranian regime, right? Because even if they killed a bunch of Jews or a bunch of Israelis and did massive damage, the United States is definitely going to step in. If they
Yeah,
use a nuclear
folks.
weapon
I feel like Iran would stand to lose.
It's like
personally, like
Iran.
like if they wanted
It's
to
like
use Israel,
Muslims
they know-
and Jews
this is something that I
diametrically
watched Tucker
opposed,
Carlson the other
folks.
night, and he was interviewing that, saying that we've been made
They're
to believe
classical
that,
enemies
Iran and
of
China
each
are
other,
big
folks.
threats, but they're really not. Our threats are sometimes
Muslims
like
don't
Mexico's
really
got
like
more
the
Americans,
Jews.
Right, than Iran probably has in the last couple of
And I
decades.
guess it's vice versa as well.
Go ahead, sorry.
Right, no, yeah, and hey, my mom's from
And
Mexico.
yeah,
We're right there, and we see the disaster and the implications of having a bad neighbor to our south. And
they
if
go
somebody-
to
I know
war.
Jack
It's
was really
like
posted,
how
why are
much
we
of the
striking
Muslim
cartels
world
like
is going to be
Mexico?
joining in.
We're hitting Iran, and
Israel,
I think it's valid.
Israel took out all of their top military brass, and the U.S. was like, well, I don't know.
Yeah.
Cartels are actively killing people all the time. It's crazy.
Yeah, and I don't know how anyone can look at the president of Mexico now, where Donald Trump kind of extended his olive branch and said, look, if you want us to help you with your cartel problem, we can. But of course, she wants to make it seem like, oh, we will never allow like another country to come in and take care of our own problems. We can do it by ourselves. But it's like, okay, you're kind of telling yourself right now.
Yeah.
So I'm seeing a lot of people post, Israel has a right to defend itself. And I'm like, wait, hold on. You're not seriously implying that a preemptive strike on Iran was self-defense.
That's been since thousands of years. They've been making that argument. It is the Romans did it. They were like, look, because sometimes if you just sit back and wait, and the enemy on the other side of the border builds up their military, and you don't do anything, then they invade you. They destroy your industrial capacity. You can't rebuild your counterattack. So you do the preemptive attack as a form of defense because you know they're going to attack you. But
That's
the
right.
argument
Offense
is
defense.
it's the best defense. A lot of people say in war for sure. Like the French before World War II.
Or like if you're in a situation where you have to defend your life, like if you got a gun, you have to wait for someone to punch you to take your gun out.
So let's try this.
Yeah.
Your neighbor says they are going to kill
That's
you.
not
And
self-defense.
then
That's,
you're like, okay. And then
That-
one day
that-
you
that
see him
ain't
standing in his front yard
self-defense.
assembling a
as I see
308
it,
while smiling
self-defense
at
is
you.
like,
Do you have a right?
it's like
Or does it
if
make
it's
sense to
a,
Technically, legally, no.
No, morally.
It's like if they
that-
strike
that's-
first.
I don't think that's
self-defense.
a fair analogy.
Preemptive strike? No.
Sorry to interrupt you there.
Yeah, it's very different when you're dealing with a nuclear bomb and mass casualties. The scale of death is where things get weird. Now, I'm just saying, I just,
Oh,
there are
yeah,
people
the
who are
scale of
ideologically
death.
captured on Israel. I call them the Israel First people, and they were like, denounce Israel strikes on Iran, Tim. And I'm like, I don't care. I literally don't. I'm not going to denounce Burma or whatever it is China's doing, or Tibet,
let
Pakistan.
them, I say let them fight it
Israel, Iran,
out.
whatever. I'll denounce the U.S. involvement and say the U.S. should not be involved in this.
And I don't know if you guys have also seen this.
I say let it
around
fi-
that
let
back
them
in the
fight it out.
1980s, Israel's been putting out headlines, Iran is close to a nuclear war within 5 years. And there was like another one in 1995, like they're months away from an atomic bomb. And then like fast forward 45 years, and it's like the same headline over and over again. Just, hey, there's a nuclear war that's about, and we have to go in there. To me, it just doesn't make sense because Israel, they've got so many different war fronts. They're going on in Syria, they're going on in Lebanon, they're going on in Yemen, they're going on in, and you still got Gaza to take care of. Why launch a new assault on Iran, knowing that the backlash, and then when I saw that they were getting that they had assaulted and done drone strikes in Iran, they're saying like, oh, now Israel's asking all its citizens to flee, to shelters, and because Iran's going to hit back. I'm like, well, what did you expect was going to happen?
Well, you almost wonder if they knew that was going to happen, and if they're using it as a casus belli.
That Pentagon thing they got there, what's it called? That building that they have, it's a civilian military site, so it's like a human shield site. If it gets blown up, they're gonna be like, all the civilians that were there, and then sort of
Pentagon, the same thing.
Yeah, like the military is usually
Let 'em
directed
fight it out.
by the civilians in like most democracies.
This is the thing about this attacking Iran, claiming Iran's a big threat. In the late 70s, there was an Iranian revolution. The Shah, which was democratically elected president of Iran, got overthrown in suspectedly a CIA coup. The Israelis may have been involved, but they put in this radical religious sect, this Ayatollah Khomeini, this intensely radical Islamist, who's like the perfect enemy. And now they have an enemy to fight. It's similar with Hamas. The Israelis are apparently they propped up Hamas because they needed someone to fight against.
The United States didn't back the Shah. They backed it.
I think
They
we
backed the revolution.
we overthrew the Shah and installed a democratic regime, which was then overthrown by the Islamic Revolution.
So even right now, we got a super chat, and with respect to Scott Thomas in your 64 months, seriously, wow, thank you very much. He says, stop simping for Israel. They had negotiations for Sunday. They could have waited, but decided to be the aggressor. And this is what I'm talking about. How is it simping for Israel to say the U.S. should not be involved in Middle Eastern conflicts? The U.S. should not, because I have to be anti-Israel. I'm as anti-Israel as I am anti-Burundi.
And not only that, but I think, this is something that my audience has been asking me, is why does Israel keep announcing, why does the U.S. keep announcing that they're going to strike on Sunday? They're going to strike on Sunday. Why tell your enemy?
It's a fear tactic.
If now Israel can kind of go back and the U.S. can kind of go back and like, look, for months and for weeks we've been putting out...
It's to psychologically attack
You opened up the segment
Iran
with the fact that I guess Israel is admitting that this was all like a ruse, that the deals were actually just to like kind of deter Iran and kind of have its defenses down. So that's kind of a shocking revelation. The fact that it looks like Donald Trump is saying, yeah, we've been lying to Iran. So now I know there's a lot of people pissed off at Donald Trump because they're like, what the heck?
Trump wasn't really negotiating peace.
Well, also, more importantly, he wasn't just lying to Iran. He was lying to us. He told us that we weren't involved in this, and now it turns out we were.
So we got a video.
Oh,
It looks
damn.
like somebody who was in the building that got hit filmed it, took us out. Yo. Jeez. That's crazy.
Get out.
Or he's right next to the building that got hit.
I like that it's going back and forth between Hebrew and English.
Yeah.
He's cursing in English.
Right.
But he's in shock.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's see what else I can pull up here. We have what's the next one? Here we go. This is a story from the Dallas Morning News. Quote, we knew everything. Trump said as U.S. shifts military resources after Israel hits Iran. It's from the AP, as reported by Dallas Morning News. The United States is shifting military resources, including ships in the Middle East, in response to Israel's strikes in Iran. President Donald Trump told Reuters in a phone interview Friday that he and his team knew everything about Israel's plan to attack Iran, and that he had given Tehran fair warning it needed to make a deal on its nuclear program. We knew everything, and I tried to save Iran humiliation and death. I tried to save them very hard because I knew, because I would have loved to have seen a deal worked out. They can still work out a deal, however, it's not too late. So this is initially...
kiss that up, plan goodbye for
the talk was that the
deal.
Trump team, the White House had no idea, and they were planning negotiations. I think, I don't know if we have this one.
Kiss that planet
We do have this.
goodbye.
Trump says Iranian negotiators working with U.S. are no longer alive. He says they didn't die of the flu, they didn't die of COVID. Israeli sources had been reporting, check this out, how an Israeli-American deception campaign lulled Iran into a false sense of security. official says Trump's warnings to Netanyahu not to attack, as well as stories of Israeli officials flying to the U.S. and PM taking a short vacation, were put out to fool the regime. Now, I don't know how much of that is true, but with Trump saying we know everything, it sounds like that may have been the case. That the U.S. was basically saying, no, we want to negotiate with you. Considering Trump's the one who killed the nuclear deal, him saying, I want to negotiate with you, it's plausible. And the reason why they're keeping this from the American people is that Trump knows his base is largely anti-intervention and doesn't want to be involved in this. But it's entirely possible. Trump was trying to maintain the posture of we don't want to be involved in this conflict, getting those stories out so Iran thought the attack would not happen.
The Netanyahu also said he wants an Iranian revolution. He wants the people to overthrow the dictatorship that is their government. He doesn't have a problem with the Iranians. It's the government. It's the dangerous, psychotic. This is his argument. I think Trump might feel the same way. And I'll tell you what, if I was in their position, if I was the Ayatollah Khomeini right now, and I was betrayed like this by the Americans in the middle of a peace deal, I would never forgive them. Literally never forgive them. So unless they're removed from power or destroyed, whatever, unless they're removed from power, I don't see this conflict ending. Now, if there is a regime change in Iran, and there's a democratically, maybe there's a republic that's
Iran's so far away.
Maybe that can quell the violence, but I don't see it. Other than that, I don't see it.
That kind of wasn't the result in Iraq. I don't know that would be the result in Iran either.
Iran was a successful democracy.
They do have a much longer history as a this is going to sound bad, but as a civilized state. Like, they have been around independently for thousands upon thousands of years. On the other hand, Islam is a
tribal.
It's a religion that likes violence, and the concern that I would have is that what Trump may not be understanding here is that in Islam, in their eschatology, it says that at the end of days, the stones will cry out, "There is a Jew behind me, come and kill him." So when you look at the people who are in charge of Iran, as much as the regular average Iranian probably isn't a hateful person, the people in control are, and their opinion is that it is better to die than it is to submit to the world outside of Islam. And that would be the concern I would have. I think it's foolish to go into a conflict with them expecting that they will tolerate their own people rising up. They will happily kill them before giving up power.
I heard that the Israelis basically launched a surgical strike destroying members of the Iranian government and military, like top nuclear scientists.
They were literally killing people in the room. Like, they were selecting the room that they were in, shooting ordnance into the room that really basically just killed people in the room, and it didn't destroy the building.
So just...
Damn.
Finish.
No, that's it.
I just wanted to clarify your point. It's not when the end days come. It said they won't come. The quote is, "The day of judgment will not come until Muslims fight Jews and kill them. Then the Jews will hide behind rocks and trees, and the rocks and trees will cry out, 'O Muslim, there's a Jew hiding behind me, come and kill him.'"
Yeah. So
that was actually in the Hamas charter too.
Yeah, it's their eschatology has it that when we come to that point, that the war will happen, and that even these stones and trees will cry out against the Jews.
That is,
so I think
it's a prerequisite for
Yes.
them to meet the day of judgment.
Yes.
To do this.
And that when you look at the Shia position and the intense religiosity of the Iranian regime, I would be very concerned about what they perceive this to be.
It's interesting. The caliphate is an interesting concept, that a religion itself formed the state, the Muslim caliphate, in, like, I don't know what it was, 700 AD, 800 AD. I mean, Israel is technically a religious state, but that there was, like, a country, but there was also this caliphate that was a country. Like, was Muhammad, like, a governor? Was he a president? Was he what was he?
He was a prophet and
a war leader.
He was a warlord, yeah.
And in Islam, the caliphs are basically his direct descendants. Sometimes, and depending on which Shia or Sunni, might be a more spiritual succession, and in some cases it's a more direct lineage from, I believe, his cousin.
That it's intricately tied into the governance of the system. It's like...
they fully believe that the successor of Muhammad is the one who should lead both the religion and the state.
Yeah, and that's a big part of the problem, because of a lot of the things that the religion specifically said, specifically about Israel.
And it's very different from the way Christianity views this church and state relationship. And I understand I got cooked this morning, I know. But they don't see it as a partnership. It is one. And that person is to lead Islam into a position where it overtakes the world. Yeah. But of course, then it has to shrink back, and it has to be cornered, and then It's kind of like Revelation. Muhammad just kind of took Revelation and rewrote it.
It has to shrink back to be cornered.
Yeah, it expands and then it is defeated, pushed back to Jerusalem. It's really crazy how this is all in Revelation in other wording. And then 600 years later, some guy in Arabia is like, hey, we're going to do that too.
You know, as a bit of a tangent, Muhammad reminds me a lot of Alexander the Great in his story. He was like a young, middle-aged war leader, and then hugely successful. People fought him. And then when he died, his generals split up his empire and formed their own countries or cults or groups. It's the same thing that happened with with Alexander. Similar thing. Very. I think Alexander was poisoned by his men, though. I don't think.
I definitely think there's also like an interesting conversation happening in which obviously now it's looking like Donald Trump knew everything. That could mean two things. It means we were playing Iran to kind of surprise it, or it could mean Israel had always informed us what they were planning on doing, and I was actually trying to strike a deal with Iran through these last weeks. And I mean, look how much time they gave Iran, right? So I mean, I think Trump, in some way, can kind of be like, look, I was doing my part. Of course, Israel needs to run it by us. But I think that there was like, I've heard like people like Ben Shapiro say, and then you had Mark Levin saying that who are we, the United States, to tell Israel that they're not allowed to strike Iran? I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, look, that can only be true if we take the Ben Shapiro route, in which we're just completely disengaged. But if we're sending money over to Israel, and they're depending on us, which the reports show that America has interfered and intercepted a lot of these missiles. Well, wait a minute, what happened? I thought Israel didn't need us.
They brought Mark Levin on Fox and Friends this morning, and that dude is Israel first as they come.
Yeah, he's lost the plot.
He was like fervently saying, it is America first to defend Israel and fight Iran and all that stuff. And he's like, and they call me a neocon, and I'm like, that's not America. Like, that's literally not. It's the antithesis of America first. Yeah.
I will say this is something that I actually have a conversation with my audience about. Being Hispanic myself, my mom from Mexico. We don't have. I don't understand this America-Israel stuff, to be honest. I see all these Americans kind of evangelicals talking about this undying loyalty to Israel, but in Los Angeles we don't
move Israel
we never
to
really
Mexico.
We never talked about Israel.
You've never been.
It's like what Sheldon said in Big Bang Theory.
I haven't got invited.
Well, are you Catholic?
I'm not Catholic now,
but you are.
I'm Christian, yeah.
So I'm going to take another L as a Protestant today. This is rough for me. But this is, again, Protestantism, which is largely where the idea that we're supposed to defend Israel comes from, because it's not that Americans are supposed to defend, it's Christians are supposed to defend the Jews. Christians are supposed to defend Israel, and this is an outspringing of a certain kind of Protestant theology that is native to the United States of America that came about in the early 1900s, which kind of pushed this idea of we're supposed to be supportive of Jews, we're supposed to be supportive of them as a state, and it bases this upon a very skewed interpretation of the Bible.
But I've heard that before, not to interrupt you, but what I would ask is, so then how did Christians bless Israel or Jewish people before 1948? So between the fall of Israel back then and
Zionism.
1948, how did Christians bless Jewish people?
We persecuted them quite a bit in the Middle Ages.
Yeah, the Jews in the Bible are the ones that killed Jesus. So that was they were the enemy in the Bible. So the Christians basically, they set that up pretty early on to let you know that Jews are the enemy.
Anti-Semitism was kind of the default position of the church for a very long time. Not necessarily Hitler's version of it, but they are others, they should not be included amongst us, has been the way it's been viewed for a very long time.
Then the Zionist movement appeared in the 1850s, and they were like, well, we want to set up a Jewish state, let's work together with the British Empire, this big British corporate empire, whatever, with the East India Trading Company, and they set up Israel. They basically worked on this plan to get the country of Israel. So the politics of Israel don't matter at the local level. It's only when you start talking geopolitical, the point of that country being where it is, to protect the Suez Canal, to dominate the trade region. Then if you start to question the validity of it, they'll start throwing religion at you and be like, don't you believe in? Aren't you afraid of?
Yeah, but they're a big part of why there's a fight over Israel is because of Jerusalem, right? Because the Islam, Christianity, and Judaism all consider Jerusalem to be like their holy city, and so it's not just about like the Suez Canal or about the international.
Oh, it's most likely about the Suez
Canal, whatever you
Canal.
want to call it. Like there is like deep-seated religious reasons for both of the groups that are PO'd about Israel to want to have access to Israel, to want to control that land.
But see, here's the thing: is like, so I still have family in Mexico, and we go visit all the time. I was just there not too long ago, and it's just something that even in the churches, even the culture there, we never, ever speak about Israel. Like we never talk about it, whether it's in the news or not. It's not like we're like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? Like, the Mexican people are not demanding that their government be like, hey, you need to do something. But then here, like you have people like Mark Levin, and he's like you said, it's America first. To be like, I would just never hear that, and I've gone to like Peru, I've gone to like Honduras. You just never hear this. It's just such a weird concept.
What you're saying is someone needs to launch MyPAC.
Oh yeah,
MyPAC. Yeah, the Mexican Israel Public Affairs. See, that's the thing. You don't have an APAC in Mexico.
Well, the Israelis,
MyPAC.
yeah, the Israelis have already infiltrated the Mexican government. They're
What about Canada? Do they have a PSI-PAC? For sure, I hope they do.
I feel like Canada's
Does
a time
Canada
slot
have-
at this point.
Oh, right,
Mm.
yeah. Yeah, they have a CCC-PAC.
Secret Chinese police in Calgary.
well, there was talk of that here in the U.S. as well. The FBI mentioned that there were actually, I think it was like San Francisco area, New York, Boston kind of area.
Can I just... So, I'm sorry, Sarah. It's Friday the 13th.
Oh yeah, it is.
And we're just off the full moon. I wish I could say it was a full moon, but that was the 11th.
So we're close enough.
So it's 95% illumination on a energy.
95% illumination, Illuminati.
That proves it.
Yep, he's got it.
And God is real. I think that the reason you don't hear about it as much in Mexico and we do in the United States, and I wonder if they hear about it in Britain. I don't know, maybe you guys know, or in Australia, Five Eyes Spy Club. I feel like they set up Israel and gave it nuclear weapons, and I say they, I mean like the liberal economic order that pulled out of the British, corporate empire. I call it corporate because when they created the East India Trading Company, that thing took over India, took over China, it took over. So they set it up. They gave it weapons. They basically created a nuclear bulwark in the East to protect our interest, the liberal economic order's trade interests, and they're highly obsessed with maintaining it. That's why you hear about it constantly in the Five Eyes countries. Five Eyes.
It's the world order. When George H.W. Bush said in what was it, the early 90s?
93.
He said some people can imagine a new world order. The phrase new world order literally was a reference to the liberal economic order and the restructuring of it. And then when a bunch of people started saying the new world order, they weren't describing a proper noun as capital N, W-O. They were saying lowercase n, capital W.
Yeah, like at one point, the liberal economic order was the new world order.
Right.
So they want to know
that one.
There's actually a soundbite of President Biden saying, it was one of his ramblings early on, and he was talking about, there's actually a soundbite of him saying, in front of a press conference, saying that a top general told him in a top secret meeting that the liberal world order began after World War II. And I was like, what a very odd thing to say. Here we go, and it just kind of went into that, but
here we go.
Is more
1991
than one small country. It is a big idea, a new world order, where diverse nations are drawn together in common cause to achieve the universal aspirations of mankind. What is at stake is more than one small country. The universal aspirations of mankind, peace and security, freedom, and the rule of law.
So I say we must clean the house of white America.
There is no conspiracy.
Americans,
They've been doing it out in the
in
open
the
for
white majority
years.
should be proud to stand up and be heard denouncing the sort of racist rhetoric we heard on that tape. So loudly and clearly denouncing it that our black fellow citizens can hear us. White racism may be black people's burden, but it's white people's problem.
I don't know what that has to do with the New World Order, but it's in the same clip.
It was the Sister Soldier motion.
so weird.
Yeah.
Well, there's the New World Order proclamation, and for, like you said, 20 years, people thought it was a conspiracy theory. People like Alex Jones would talk about it, and they thought he was like, in the WWF, they had
The corporate press created a proper noun, New World Order. You can search for it on Wikipedia. But it was never a proper noun. It was a descriptive phrase for the Council on Foreign Relations, the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, all the system that was called the Liberal Economic Order or the Liberal World Order.
Yep, based out of well, not based, but the Bank for International Settlements kind of is the mother brain out of Switzerland. All the central banks, the New York Federal Reserve, the Bank of England, and the Bank of Australia run their money through the Swiss bank, and that's kind of the brain of this system.
And here we have it from the Council on Foreign Relations.org. What is the Liberal World Order?
Set up in what, 47, 49? Right
From
after World
natural
War II.
disasters to deadly diseases to wars, the world can be a turbulent, even chaotic place.
Oh.
But around 75 years ago, a new system was imagined to temper this turbulence and improve the lives of many. It is called the Liberal World Order.
Oof.
It is a liberal system in the sense that it operates on rules that are, in theory, applied to each country equally, and that it encourages each country to be democratic and to open its economy to the rest
Be
of the world.
democratic or
It is
else.
a global system in that every country around the world is encouraged to join and follow those rules, even if some do not. And it is a system.
And what happens to those that do not?
Dude, if you put the Helldivers music behind that, it would fit perfectly.
That's what I'm saying. Look at what it says. It says right there after World War II. And it all began. And that's why I just found it really odd because Joe Biden was talking about something completely different. And for some reason, he just decided to throw it in there. And by the way, I met with the top secret general who told me that right after World War II, that's when the Liberal World Order began. And I'm just like, well, what was it before that? What was?
It was multipolar. They had the League of Nations, which was an attempt at like a UN, but it was multipolar, and then Germany was uncontrollable. They were building up their. So after World War II, they were like, never again are we going to let a country build up its military and sneak attack and take over France. So they built this super secretive, aggressive military-industrial complex they call the New World Order. They set up Israel in 49, I think, 47, 49.
47, like 48. Yeah.
Right after they said, as part of this construction of this order, they instantiated Israel and the mandate for Palestine had been the British mandate had been set up. And here it is. Now they want to kind of evolve into some new one, and they were never clear about what it's going to be. So
You know where they really lost it though, and the reason it's falling apart is because they wanted everyone to be gay. And I'm not joking. When they tried pushing gay communism on third world countries and in the United States, it created a massive backlash. In the U.S., when corporate institutions adopted this, whether it was through mandate or I think it was more emergent, but it may be a combination of powerful interests saying, okay, let's roll with it, and social media pushing it. When you take a look at the trends across all major media newspapers all over the world, at the end of the 2000s, 2008, 2009, racism, white supremacy, sexism all skyrocketed in every single newspaper. Once the woke critical theory emerged, a major backlash erupted across many of these countries, including Europe and the United States.
do you think that they were like, our forced sterilization projects aren't working? They're getting upset. And then the guy's like, have you tried making them gay? And then they're like, want less population.
I think the Malthusians, for those that are not familiar, Malthusians have been around, I believe, since the 70s, believing that there would eventually come to be too many people, so they had to do whatever they could to stop people from reproducing. And, Bill Gates wants to reduce population growth and things like this. And so one of the strategies is to discourage sex by any means and encourage non-reproductive sex.
That is not far off from capitalism.
What is that?
It was a medieval heresy of the church that was basically the material world in and of itself is evil. Creation is evil. But existence in and of itself does not have to be evil, so they encouraged people to have sex but not reproduce, to be hedonists, things like that, and the Catholic Church stands it out extremely aggressively.
It makes perfect sense.
Massacred about 7,000 people, including other Catholics in Nazir, because they were like, the exact quote is, I believe, kill them all, God will recognize his own.
Let me play a little bit more of this liberal world order stuff.
System that promotes order in that most countries that buy into it respect the borders of other countries and seek to resolve their differences peacefully. It was developed in an effort to avoid repeating the major man-made disasters of the first half of the 20th century.
Oh, for man-made disasters? You mean World War? Oh.
Following World War II, the United States, along with several other countries, started drafting an aspirational blueprint for what later became known as the Liberal World Order by establishing certain international institutions. The United Nations was built to promote peace between countries. The World Bank would support global economic development, and the International Monetary Fund and the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, which later became the World Trade Organization, would support investment and trade between countries. While these institutions provided the blueprint for the liberal world order, the system was really powered by the United States.
So in other words, the U.S. said, okay, everybody, we're a big stick in the room, so we're going to do what we want, and you better do it too, or else. And what happens to individuals who defy the liberal economic order and the World Bank? Well, by coincidence, they just end up having revolutions. It's a crazy thing that just happens in these countries. Or, for some reason, they end up being evil, as their own people, and even kill them.
Like Russia. The problem with the liberal economic order and the reason it didn't work in totality was because of the Soviet Union. They could never get in there and disrupt it until the late 80s. Then you see this oligarchical revolution in the Soviet Union, shattering it and making it business opportunities. But the problem is, at that point, the communism and the ideology had spread to China. And China in the late 40s had their own revolution against this crap. Shortly after World War II, they basically, for 100 years before the end of World War II, we were talking about this before the show, there's what was called the Opium Wars. The British, the East India Company was basically selling opium into China, 1830s, 1840s, poisoning their populace, destroying their intelligence, making them agrarian, basically. The Chinese revolted and said, we want opium to be illegal. The British came in with their advanced weaponry and stomped them down. Said, no, it's not. So 5 years later, the Chinese rose up again. The British and the French went in, stomped them down completely, and said, opium's going to be legal in China. For 100 years, they call it the century of humiliation. This was like a call of the Chinese Communist Revolution.
Damn.
We're not going to put up with this British humiliation anymore. These unfavorable treaties that we were forced to sign. So now they're giving it back to us with the fentanyl. I mean, this war is still going on.
They're giving it to the United States because of what the British did. What are you talking about, man?
Yes. Now they want to destroy our what do they call brain drain? They want to create brain drain in the United States so we can't industrialize property for the 21st century.
I don't think that it has a whole lot to do with getting revenge on the British by attacking the United States. I do think that the United States and China are rivals. It's not one of those things like the way that the former administration used to articulate it. They would say that we were partners, or that we were in friendly competition. I do think that it's actually not friendly competition, but I don't think that it has much to do with the way that England treated China 100 years ago.
I'll be more clear. I think that it's not that they're have a personal grudge. It's that they look at what's the arcing power structure on Earth right now. It's the liberal economic order. Let's destroy that with the same technique that was used against us. Let's poison their populace through opium.
They're doing a very specific, ultra-nationally capitalist thing right now, and that's kind of, I think, their main way.
I think
Fentanyl is probably
enough
being used to
for
hit
today.
us, but the way China is doing things is that they're...
I'm Blood Knight of the Republic of Bloodganistan. Like, share, and subscribe.